I would like to say hello who joins today's online classes, and before starting our topic I would like to say everyone greetings and first of all I want to say the ADAUTV University for organizing such useful live classes for our students. Today we are going to look at the multiculturalism subject, and our topic name is Multiculturalism and Religious Ethnic Diversity. It is the third topic in line of our program. So, multiculturalism is kind of the ethnical diversity. It has got a range of meanings in the context of the colloquial use or sociology or political philosophy. But mostly the closest meaning for the multiculturalism in the daily usage or in the colloquial use is ethnical pluralism. Ethnical pluralism and multiculturalism means almost the same thing. For example, it means that the cooperation of the different people from different ethnic and national backgrounds together and cooperating and contributing for something. Multiculturalism actually itself is nothing new. It was known for many decades, even for thousands of years ago for the mankind. We know that there were greatest empires, greatest countries which covered the huge areas of its own time. And in those countries, the nations, the different nations, tribes lived together, and they had, of course, different cultures, values, beliefs, faiths, traditions, costumes, and customs, and so on. For example, for these different nations and other sort of countries, we might exemplify the greatest ones as the Greece country and the Roman Empire, and in later periods, Ottoman Empire. And multiculturalism in Azerbaijan's tradition, in Azerbaijan politics, is very important. We know that Azerbaijan plays a bridge role between the two different civilizations. It raises its authority, and it kind of make contacts between two hemispheres, the Western and Eastern hemispheres. And of course, these multiculturalist ideas, sort of like that, Azerbaijan reflects it in its foreign policy. For example, Azerbaijan is the fully member of kind of the organizations like UN, OSCE, and Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and other kind of such kind of organizations. And we inherit these multiculturalist ideas, not only from our everyday life, just on a daily basis, because it's kind of the reparable part of our life. We meet this, we see these multiculturalists, we face these multiculturalist ideas all the time in our life, but moreover, we inherit it from our descendants. For example, if we look at the art history, and of course kind of politics of the people lived earlier than us, and their kind of history, art, and so on, we'll see those multicultural ideas mostly reflected and were in usage in the history of Azerbaijan. And later I would like to add that Azerbaijan plays a very important role in multiculturalism. For example, it is a kind of thing that Azerbaijan, the tolerance and is the highest level in Azerbaijan. We can see it in different parts of our life. For example, we hold kind of different international events here, and we host different international events in our capital city. And of course, for example, let's say in April, there was a religious event kind of with the name Globalization, Religion, and Traditional Values. And it was in April 2010. Over 200 delegations came to Azerbaijan from different traditional religion backgrounds, and they attended there. And since 2011, Azerbaijan hosts very important World Forum on intercultural dialogue, and it is held in 2 years with the personal initiative of the President of Republic Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev. That shows those proofs, like evidences and examples, shows that our country plays great role in the aspect of multiculturalism. And of course, we integrate to the Europe. We play kind of dominant role in the process of integration to the Europe. And with the partnership of Eastern Partnership, with the help of it, and of course the UN and other organizations. Later, I would like to give kind of a deep information about the culture aspects. We know that culture is on a whole, in the terminology, it kind of considered complex thing because it has got details. And first we have to look at those details. For example, culture, what is culture? Because if we look at the core word, the root of the multiculturalism, it means many cultures, because multi prefix itself means many, we know that, and multiculturalism means many cultures. It's kind of like learns, studies, searches about the cultures. So that's why, firstly, before passing to the religious diversity and the other plan, we have to learn more about the culture itself. Culture is a reflection of the all nations' background. So we can say that each culture contains some very important details. For example, culture itself is divided into two groups: material culture and non-material culture. And in order to clarify this kind of like theology, we have to say that non-material culture are abstract things. For example, we can't touch them, we can't see them, we can only study, learn about them. For example, language or values or beliefs are the perfect example for the non-material culture. We could add this list other sort of like material objects such as traditions or sort of values, beliefs, languages, symbols, and so on. And on the other hand, material culture objects are physical. We can see them, we can touch them. Those material cultural objects could be considered as like material physical objects. For example, from the archaeological excavations, findings, artifacts, which belongs to the life of early people, we could say that they are material cultural objects. Or anything like that. For example, the other transportation means or kind of traces and remains of the old castles, towers, or from early tombs, the kind of the findings from the early tombs which belongs to the early people and their personal things. We know that mostly these sort of things which belongs to material culture aspect mostly can be found from, for example, from the archaeological excavations. And later I would like to add that culture, as I said, it has got two different aspects. We clarified them, and I want to say about symbols. First, we know that every culture is filled with symbols in that or this way, and symbols kind of carries different information, emotions, and it kind of like evokes different emotions when we see different symbols, and we can never imagine any culture without having symbols. And those symbols are important. And again, for division, I would like to say that that symbols could be nonverbal symbols, and of course sort of material symbols, like we're going to take a look at them later. First, let's look at the material symbols. For example, the symbol, the meaning of our flag. We know that every government country, independent country, has got their emblems, their attributes, which represents and reflects their independence and freedom. And so we have got those kind of like attributes too. The first is our flag. It symbolizes our freedom. And that is very important for representing some kind of like good emotions about us. So we see that there are mainly three colors, which is the sky blue colors. It represents Turkic multiculturalism, the first, and next red indicates the establishment of modern democratic republic. And the last is green color. It reflects the information about the relation of our country with Islam religion. And lastly, we know that there is white color, and on the kind of front and the back part of the, our flag, in the middle of it, there is a white crescent and white 8-pointed star. So later, let's look at the nonverbal symbols. One of the most important nonverbal symbol, we know that it is gesture. We use gesture in our everyday life. It helps us to be clear. For example, if we are talking about having conversation about something with the person in front of us, we use gestures, and it helps us to transmit that information easily to the person in front of us. That's why we use gestures. For example, there are many types of gestures, but it doesn't necessarily mean that all gestures could be affirmative, could seem positive in all parts of the world, because some gestures could seem kind of in a negative way, but the others, the same gestures, could seem that okay, there is nothing wrong with them. For example, one of the simplest one is the shaking hand with somebody. For example, we do this when we meet someone, and it's usually in the usage when we meet or when we depart from someone. We use this gesture, and it comes with good emotions. For example, friendship. There's nothing wrong with that, and in most parts of the world, it's such like that. But for example, let's take another gesture. For example, putting your forefinger and thumb together and making O. It means that everything is okay, everything is wonderful and perfect. Or nodding your head up and down, it means yes. Or just shaking your head back and forth, it means no. In some of the parts of the many parts of the world, it is like that. Later, we are going to look at other type of the symbols. For example, in some parts of the world, it is not such kind of acceptable thing to use left hand for eating, because it is thought that left hand is used for bathroom hygiene and you have to use right hand while eating. And these are the all kind of like exemplifying something for symbols, like examples for symbols. Next, we are going to look at the language. Language, another is non-material part of the culture, and it plays a very important role in the life of every individual. We can never imagine our life without language. Language, before if you look at the history of a language, we'll see that it was like it came through the evolution process, because when the first civilization on Earth was created, there was not language, only oral language. Later it was created and by the people, and it was oral language, and the words were short, and later the first thing for the humankind history was kind of discovery of the written language. And written language was consisted of some pictographs, hieroglyphs in later time, kind of like pictures, like it was like pictures language first times they kind of discovered. And that language helped us to learn more about the ancient population's life. For example, it's not only about making conversation or like translation of the information in front of the person it's just a matter of fact that you learn the generations lived before you. So that sort of information transmits, you just learn the early generations like lived before you, and it helps you, this kind of like information circulate, this kind of circulation information, it helps you to learn more about those people's cultures, because without decoding, without deciphering language, we would never be able to learn about those people's life. And later, I would like to give an example for the importance of language. As I said, it is important, but in one example, I want to clarify my idea too. Because, for example, imagine that you are in a strange, unknown place. You don't know the languages those people, they don't know yours either, and you are completely lost there because you don't have any picture, it's kind of dictionary with you, or maybe a pocket dictionary, and you have not got the phone apps in order to translate those words they are saying, and you will be completely lost. And that is when language comes help. That is the importance of language that really meant to be important. And now we are going to take a look at norms. Norms are again very important for the life of the people, and what norms exactly are. For example, in order to understand that idea, I would like to say that it's kind of standards and expectation of behaviors. And norms forms the society. Of course, it changes from nation, from kind of like country to country, and norms could be different. And norms could be formal norms and informal norms. Formal norms are formal norms are more important because there are strict rules about the society. Each member of the society has to follow. For example, let's say the traffic jam rules, or university codes, or school codes, or other sort of things like. They are the real expectations like society, that each member of society waits from you, and you have to follow those norms. But there are informal norms. They are not so serious, changes from person to person. For example, you can accommodate this for you, but still you should preserve some kind of lines, kind of standards for yourself. You can't just make it break all the time. These rules can be kind of norms, can be appeared in some ways. For example, if you are in an elevator, or if you are waiting in a queue, it's a long queue and there is a long queue and we are waiting there, and it like shows some norms from you, and this will show how what kind of person you are and so on. Now let's look at the other kind of like parts of the culture. This time, before passing to the religious part of our topic, we are gonna lastly give another type of the cultural aspect. It is about, for example, we say ethnocentrism and religious diversity could play a role there. Actually, it says that every person is a bit ethnocentric. It means that ethnocentrism, putting your culture as a center and thinking about that it's the best and there is no way that any culture should be better than yours. So this is called ethnocentrism. In the otherwise of it, there is a kind of lack of adaptation, the problem with the adaptation with that process. So for example, if you go somewhere, of course you are taking your all kind of identities, cultural, national identities, your backgrounds there, you're going with them there. And you are already adapted kind of different process, you have lived in a different atmosphere, and that's why that sort of things could seem a little weird for you. And that adaptation process could take a long time. And that's why it's called that, and maybe in different terminology, it's called mostly culture shock. For example, if we see that someone is eating the grass meat, it could seem that very weird, very strange behavior for you because you have never done this before, you have never seen anyone doing that before. That's why it could seem weird. Or from nation to nation, cultural behavior, norms could be changeable. In some nations, some cultures could be acceptable. There is nothing wrong with them. So that's why they accept it as normal things. And they think that there is nothing wrong with that. But when you see them, it could seem you weird. As a perfect model for a multicultural country, every people from different backgrounds, national and the cultural backgrounds can live together freely in a welfare and mutual understanding atmosphere, peace and dialogue. But yet, the research shows that the psychologists, the sociologists say that the best way to overcome that culture problem, which is created by some reasons, is communicate. Communicating much help you to break that prejudice against that cultures, against the information about that culture or your opinion about that culture. And it was an experiment, there was a social experiment among the university or college students. We know that in different colleges and universities, students might come from different backgrounds and they could be overseas students and so on. And this could be a little bit problem for them because they are in a new circumstances, they are in a new atmosphere, they are in a new place, and this could cause kind of like different problems for them. But research shows that the best way to overcome those problems is to interact. If you start interaction with a person in front of you, you will 100%, but it happens by time, you will by 100% overcome those problems. Now, I would like to talk about religious diversity and of course ethical diversity. Religion is an impartible part of every nation. It is the history of nation and it is supposed that there were over thousands of religions up to today's date, and in minor groups and major groups, and people had different religions. And firstly, I would like to give information about the early religions in history. Later, we are getting information gradually up to date religions. First, it is a little known, very little known about prehistoric religions in Azerbaijan. For example, pre-Christian religions or pre-Islam religions. And those evidences, the facts, are mostly Hellenic. Historians like Strabo or they mostly rely on, based on the archaeological evidences. And for example, we might say that in the early times, we are saying it according to the manuscripts and early texts, like which were found in different line of time, and it gave information about the history and religious history of Azerbaijan. We might say that people worship different gods. And we know that in the early times, primitive people, like the early people living in different parts of the world, they worship different gods. It was multi-god religion. And for example, moon, sky, stars, or above all, sun god. It is mainly influenced from the country called Mesopotamia, because we know that in the ancient time, our country had borderline with Mesopotamia. Both countries were neighborhood countries, so that's why the processes went there. For example, socio-economic processes, this sort of other type of processes impacted our countries, inner relations and external relations. So this sort of things really impacted us. For example, from those evidences, we might say that there were 4 different facts about like having similarities among the god names of that time, and even having the similarities in definitions and the meaning they carried. And next, we are going to give information about other religion, which was considered one of the oldest religions in the history of mankind. This is called fetishism. Fetishism is simply saying worshipping the material objects. And it's a common belief that different material objects carry supernatural powers. For example, the personal things of the tribe leaders. The things belong to very important people from the tribe or the group of the people, the group leader of that time. Of course, we are talking about very ancient times ago. And they were thought that those things may be amulets, they might be amulets or rings or other sort of belongings. They carried kind of like supernatural power in them. They have special features. For example, they worship those things, and even they carried those things with them because they thought that that sort of spiritual power transits into those things, and they had got special feature for feeling the ill people or for putting the things in right order, for making the things good. Next, we are going to look at totemism religion. It's the one of the earliest religions too. Totemism means that it's a system of belief actually. It is thought that having kinship between the kind of the mystical relations between spiritual being and plant or animal. It is kind of thought that they have got all the animals, all the plants have got their own spirits, and it in some way, somehow, it is carried to the person. And one example for this, in order to understand well, I would like to say that totemism was one of the well-known religions in the Native Americans, among the Native Americans. For example, in the world, of course, because they thought that they were coming from some kind of serpent descendant or eagle descendants and so on. And for our nation, it is not especially for Turkic nation, it is known and unknown because it's common for our Turkish nation especially. There was a common belief there that the Turkish people genetized from the wolf, because there was a mythology, myth with the name Ergenekon, and it is thought that it's a Genesis mythology, so Turkish people were coming from the wolf descendants. And this was sort of another mythology which clarifies the people's early beliefs. Now we are going to look at the timeline another religion, which was very important for the life of our people. We see its traces still in the culture of ours. For example, it is Zoroastrianism. Maybe very few of you, or maybe many of you know about Zoroastrianist religion. Zoroastrianism covered very huge areas. It is on time. It was one of the most dominant religions of its own time, and it was monogod religion, and it was the dominant religion for 3 empires, which were in the timeline of the history. Middle Persia, firstly, it started to be disseminated, and later it was the government, and the governmental level it was their religion, and later Achaemenid Empire and Sassanid Empire. And particularly it preserved its dominance up to 7th century AD. And it is supposed that Zoroastrianist religion firstly became to the stage of the history in the 1st millennium BC. So that thing, or I would like to say that, firstly, the relation of the Zoroastrianist religion with our culture. We know that actually it is said that there is a direct link with the meaning of our country's name and Zoroastrianism, because our country's name is Azerbaijan, and says that it has got a direct link with Zoroastrianism. We know that Zoroastrianist people worshipped fire. They thought fire to be sacred. And our country is called the land of eternal fire, or land of fire. And we deeply respect those traces, with those marks, those cultural identities of Zoroastrianism in our culture, and we still carry some traces of them, the Zoroastrianist culture's identities in ours. For example, I would like to say that firstly, Zoroastrianist people sought for main elements of the basis, core, beginning of the life. Those 4 elements were very important for them. They never ever defiled them. For example, they were fire, air, soil, and water. And in the Zoroastrianist cult, we know that they never, firstly, I would like to talk about their burial ceremonies. For example, in the burial ceremonies, they never directly buried the dead body, corpse, into the land. Firstly, they built kind of a sky burials. Those sky burials were type of the flat-topped towers. They were circular-shaped towers, and they put the corpse, dead body, on it. And later it was kept there until it was completely exposed from the local vultures. And later that dead body was already clean and bleached from flesh, and only kind of bones have left. They picked them and put them into the lime pits, and later it was ready to be buried. And this is the one example for respectation, for the showing respect to the land, soil. Another example, we know that there were two main holidays in the Zoroastrianist religion. They were firstly Yalta religion and Nowruz religion. It is Persian-originated word for, and Nowruz means new day. And that is it is thought that the year turns, New Year starts from the end of March, because it is celebrated at nearly the end of March. And before the celebration day, after celebration days, there were 4 weeks. And in each week, there was Tuesdays with the same name, which were particularly sacred, considered sacred for the Zoroastrianist religion. Fire Tuesday, Air Tuesday, and in other words, Wind Tuesday, and Land Tuesday, and Weather Tuesday. We still celebrate Nowruz holiday. It's our governmental level, it's our national holiday, and this is one example for the Zoroastrianist religion in our culture. And moreover, there are other traces of this religion. For example, they are in Yanardağ, in Kınalık, and other parts. Later, for some archaeologists, they say that it's actually debatable, because there are not enough materials in order to prove that theology, in order to prove that sayings like about the Zoroastrian religion, but it was thought that there were great as very massive, huge fire temples in size, very sizable ones, and there were 3 of them, and their exact location is unknown, because it is but thought that Ahura Mazda himself constructed those fire temples. Firstly, I would like to say that Ahura Mazda is called Wise Lord, and he considered to be the creator of everything, the life on earth and everything, and he was considered as a positive, like, kind of God maybe for the Zoroastrianist religion. And next, I would like to say that Zoroastrianist religion, for that one, they firstly built fire temples, and they never ever let the fire to went out, because it was considered as a holy kind of emblem, symbolizing the holy things, and it was kind of worshipping the fire. And next, I would like to say that some kind of tips, facts about Zoroastrian religion. They believe that there is an eternal fight between the good and evil, and it ends, it's never-ending fight, but in the end, they believe that evil powers will be defeated by good angelic powers, and it will be by the hand of Ahura Mazda. And later we are going to take a look at other type of the things about Zoroastrianist religion. For example, from the sociological point of view, might say that they believe that manual work, labor was everything for them, and so that's why they woke up early, they slept early, and they all the time tried to be busy, to do something, to be occupied because of their religious identities. And later we are going to say that, of course, one of the facts about their religion, it was like Zoroastrian people thought that there should be an social economic balance in society. That's why they especially thought that socio-economic balance was, in order to keep that balance, they have to do their best. But this Zoroastrian religion kept its dominance up to Arab invasion. After that, Islam religion came to the stage. It was the main religion of that era, where Zoroastrian religion spread out. After dissemination of new religions, gradually by little became the first, second, and later only few followers of Zoroastrian religion are known now, and mostly they concentrated in the different parts. For example, they mostly concentrated in Iran or in Pakistan and so on. They still there live their faith there and live their beliefs. Next, I would like to talk about Hinduism religion. And Hinduism actually, it came to Azerbaijan in the Middle Ages. Because of the trading processes, we know that main lines of the Silk Road pass through from our countries here, and that's why being located in the crossroads of main busy trade lines, it made Azerbaijan to be visited by different people, representative of different nations. And that time, in the Middle Ages, Hindu people traversed our land for trading purposes. They came here for having trades. And that time, it was kind of like 17th or 18th century. They built their fire temple. It's called Ateşgah. It is in Surakhane, and it's in Baku. And it is actually built in 17th and 18th century in pentagonal shape, and there is in the middle main fire temple, and that fire never went out. And there are, in the circular shape, there are some cells, kind of the for monks, for the priests of that religions to live there. After that, in the modern time, of course, there is not a natural gas there, only the gas part later. That kind of like historical building was gas piped there. And later we are going to look at the Christianity. Christianity came to our country the first years of first era. Christianity religion was popular in Albania. Albania was Caucasus Albania. It shouldn't be confused by the Albania in Balkans, because it was completely different country. It was the main religion for that country. Albania existed between the 1st and 8th centuries AD. And that time it covered almost the same years with the present-day Azerbaijan. And later I would like to say that up to Christianity, Albanian people worshipped different gods. As I said before, it was like early religion. Mostly they impacted from the Greek mythology. And they took different god names from Greek mythology up to that occupation of the Macedonia. And later on, that kind of influences showed themselves in the different parts, aspects of the life and religion. And later Christianity came to Albania in the first years of the new era. And that time We know that it was apostle time because apostles Bartholomew and Thaddeus came to Azerbaijan in order to spread out new religions. They came to Albania, and that time it was they erected the first ever, even the oldest church in the Caucasus region. It was in Shaki, in the village of Kish. They erected that church in the village of Kish, and later we know that Christianity in Albania was earlier than Christianity in Armenia. Even Christian church in Azerbaijan was earlier than in Armenia, and they did it to the benediction of first patriarch of Jerusalem, Yegub. Later, Christianity started to be an portable religion of the people, local people's life, because the interests sequenced. And it was very humanist religion, and that time it seemed to make sense, and it was good for the people to accept, and they freely adapted to the rules of Christianity, and they accepted it as their main own religion. Later, I would like to say that Albanian Christian Church preserved this existed up to 1836. At that time, Azerbaijan was ruled by Russian Tsar Empire, and later on, during those times, Russian Tsar Empire declared it to be abolished up to 19th century, up to 1836. Now we are gonna to take a look at the other Christian communities in Azerbaijan. For example, Malakans, there are 11 Christian communities in Azerbaijan, Malakan communities. Malakans was deported from, actually they migrated from Russians here because they centered their belief on Bibles, and they rejected the hierarchy of the church, and that's why they had to be migrated to Azerbaijan, and they dwelt here, and they actually inhabited in the villages, and supposed to be less than the 7,000 Lutheran Germans here, the Christians needed. Now we are going to take a look at the history of Germans. Germans moved here in 1810. Actually, from the Württemberg in Germany, it was a hard time for the people because of that war in Europe, and that war, Napoleon Wars, and that time Germans got the permission from the Tsar Russian Empire and moved to Azerbaijan, and they settled in two towns called Yeonondorf and Annenfeld. Later, during the Soviet times, Azerbaijan was ruled by Soviet Empire, and during the World War II, because of the some kind of political issues, they were deported by the Third Reich to the Central Asia. Next, we are going to take a look at the Islam religion. Islam arrived in Azerbaijan in 7th century, and in that time it was a hard time because of it's kind of like hard, complicated inner relation, external relations of the Sassanid Empire made the things more complicated. It was wartime. There was a war between Khazar Khanate, the Sassanid, and Byzantine. The last stage of war was between the years of 603 and 628. That time, Iraq the first attacked Sassanid Empire, and it destroyed some kind of very important spots, and even his army came up to Kanzak. We know that Kanzak was very important for Atropatene because a very important temple, the main temple of Zoroastrianism, was located there. And he occupied many places, and he even destroyed and burned in fire, and many important heirs. In that time, Azerbaijan subordinated to the Sasanian Empire. But after that war, he was subordinated to Khazar Khanate and Byzantine alliance. Later on, we are don't talk about the southern part of Azerbaijan because northern was free, dependent in making the inner relations. And next, and Islam religion came in that hard time, and it seemed people to be fair and to be humanist religion again, and they accepted it, and in the 7th century. Now we are going to look at the Jew population. Jew population in Azerbaijan. It is Jewish people came to Azerbaijan in different period of time. There are 3 groups of Jewish people. First is called Mountain Jews. Mountain Jews is supposed to be the most sizable and the oldest part of group, and later in the early 19th and late of 20th centuries, the second group, Ashkenazi Jews, came, and in the early 20th centuries, the last third group, Georgian Jews, arrived into our country. And we are going to take a look at the historical background because in 1990 there were archaeological excavations. And from those archaeological excavations, it was found the settlement belonged to Jews. Jew settlement was found later. It was found near Baku. And 25 kilometers away from Quba, there was found another Jewish synagogue. And the first Jewish meeting house was opened in 1832. Later, it was reorganized into a synagogue in 1896. We know that at that time the first synagogue was opened in 1910, and mostly majority of synagogues were opened in 19th century. And another fact that in 2003, one of the biggest synagogues in Europe opened in Baku. And later on, after time, the same year, there was opened another school, Jewish school, and it was operating in Baku again. And most of them opened by the financial support of the government, and there are now 7 Jewish synagogues. 7 of them are in our country, and 3 of them are in Baku, 2 of them are in Quba, and 2 of them are in Oğuz. So that is all about mainly our topic, because we discussed here, and I would like to say one thing, that what I have said above were kind of like perfect examples for living in an ideal multicultural standard and atmosphere inside our country. Lastly, I would like to add that from the multicultural aspect, from multicultural point of view, Azerbaijan is the greatest example for preserving all these identities, for showing tolerance, for living tolerance at the highest level. And that is very important to be the perfect example as a multicultural state to the world. And that actually we showed in those examples, we showed from the looking at the timeline, history, and from taking examples from the religions, we showed that, and we got information about all of that. And it meant to be very important, because special religions are kind of an unpartable part of our culture, not only our culture, but also the cultures of different nations. That's why they are all very important, and we should preserve these things in our life and culture. We should reflect and be a good example to the different nations. Yes, and multicultural Azerbaijan is again the greatest example for showing tolerance. And that, I think that is all about the multicultural point of view. We actually did and knew the main points about multicultural aspect and religious point of view. And we see there, as I said before, the list of the organization there, which Azerbaijan is the member of. We see there the list of the European Union, Council of Europe, United Nations, and so on. And again, those are kind of like list of shows that Azerbaijan is going to actually integrate into Europe, and that is it. And thank you for your attention.